Hey guys, tonight we begin with a whisper from the past, a story that's been trodden into the dust of forgotten roads. Imagine a time when a single letter, carried by a lone figure on foot or horseback, could change the fate of a town, or just ruin someone's day when it arrived late. Isn't it strange to think how much rested on the legs of a messenger, someone who was half hero, half pack mule, and entirely underpaid? Let's wander into their world, where every step was a gamble and every delivery a small miracle. If you enjoy drifting into history like this, maybe like and subscribe, but only if you feel like it. No pressure. Dim the lights, settle into your coziest blanket, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum. Let's take a slow, quiet walk through the life of a medieval messenger, where the roads were long, the dangers were real, and the pay was, well, let's just say it wasn't worth writing home about. You wake up in medieval Europe, somewhere in the 14th century, in a small village where the air carries the scent of damp earth and the faint tang of wood smoke from hearths just beginning to stir. Your bed is no more than a straw-stuffed sack laid across a creaky wooden frame, the kind that leaves your back stiff but functional. You're a messenger, a wanderer tasked with carrying words across the uneven roads that stitch towns together. It's a job that sounds simple. Take a letter from one place to another, but as you sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes, you know it's anything but. Every journey is a gamble, every delivery a small defiance of the chaos that lurks beyond the village gate. The room is dim, lit only by the soft grey light creeping through a narrow window. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed, your bare feet brushing the cold dirt floor. Your boots, patched and worn from countless miles, sit in the corner like loyal companions. You lace them up slowly, deliberately, feeling the leather creak under your fingers. Over your shoulder goes your satchel, a sturdy thing of rough hide, holding today's burden. A handful of letters bound for Brighthaven, a town some 20 miles away. On a good day, with clear skies and no trouble, you'll reach it by nightfall. On a bad day, well, you've learned not to dwell on bad days. They come whether you think about them or not. You step outside and the village is just waking. The horizon glows faintly, a thin line of gold where the sun is beginning its climb. The air is sharp, biting at your cheeks, and you pull your cloak tighter. Your satchel holds a crust of bread, a wedge of hard cheese, and those precious letters, each sealed with wax that feels heavier than it should. Some are mundane, a merchant's order for wool, a priest's fussy note about a church matter. Others carry weight, a noble summons, a tax decree, or, worst of all, a love letter. Those are the ones that make your stomach twist. A scorned lord's anger travels faster than you ever could, and you've seen what happens to messengers who deliver bad news to the wrong people. You pat the satchel, checking the seals. A broken seal means a broken career, or worse. The road to Brighthaven stretches out before you, a muddy track pocked with stones and ruts from carts that passed weeks ago. You take your first steps, setting a steady, plodding pace. No sprinting for you. Messengers who burn out early don't make it to dusk. The path is quiet, save for the crunch of gravel under your boots and the distant crow of a rooster who's clearly proud of his job. A farmer waves from his field, his ox already trudging through the morning mist. You nod back, but you don't stop. Stopping is a luxury you can't afford. The life of a messenger is one of motion, but it's not the glamorous dash of a knight on horseback. It's a slow grind, a test of endurance. The roads are treacherous. Spring turns them to sludge, winter to ice, and autumn, like now, brings a damp chill that seeps into your bones. You've heard stories of messengers mired in mud so deep they needed a team of oxen to pull them out. You smile at the thought, imagining the indignity. A royal decree delayed because you lost a boot to a puddle. It's the kind of thing that'd make a tavern laugh, but out here, it's no joke. Your satchel is your lifeline, and you guard it like a mother hen. The letters inside are more than parchment. They're trust, fragile as the wax that holds them closed. You've carried messages that changed lives. A pardon for a condemned man, a betrothal contract, a warning of war. Once you delivered a letter so urgent you ran through the night, only to find it was a noble's complaint about his neighbour's pigs. You laughed then, but only after you were safely out of earshot. A messenger learns quickly to keep his thoughts to himself. As you walk, the village fades behind you, replaced by open fields that roll gently toward the horizon. The road is yours now, for better or worse. There's a strange peace in it, being alone with your steps and your thoughts. You hum a tune, an old ballad about a knight who probably never existed, the kind of hero who'd ride past a messenger without a glance. It's off-key, but it keeps you company. The fields give way to a scattering of trees, their leaves turning the rusty hues of autumn. You scan the horizon, not out of fear, not yet, but habit. The road has taught you to be watchful. You think about Brighthaven, wondering what it'll hold. A warm meal, if you're lucky. A dry place to sleep, if the innkeeper's feeling generous. You've stayed in worse places, barns, ditches, once even a hollowed-out tree during a storm. A messenger's life is not one of comfort, but there's a quiet pride in it. You're the thread that ties the world together, carrying words that might topple a lord or save a village. Or they might just be about pigs. Either way, you keep walking. The sun is higher now, warming your face as you settle into the rhythm of the road. 20 miles is a long way, but you've done it before. You'll do it again tomorrow and the day after that. The letters in your satchel shift slightly as you adjust the strap. You don't know what they say, and you don't need to. Your job is to deliver them, to be the invisible hand that keeps the world turning. And so you walk, one step at a time, into the vast, uncertain morning. You've been walking for hours now, the village long gone, swallowed by the rolling fields and the quiet hum of the morning. The sun hangs higher, casting dappled shadows across the dirt path that stretches toward Brighthaven. Your boots, already caked with a thin layer of mud, thump softly against the uneven ground. Each step sends a faint ache through your legs, a reminder of the miles behind and the miles still to go. You're a messenger, a carrier of words across the patchwork roads of medieval Europe, and the road is your world, beautiful, brutal, and never entirely safe. The path dips into a forest where ancient oaks and elms knit their branches overhead, turning the daylight into a soft green haze. The air grows cooler, heavy with the scent of moss and decaying leaves. It's peaceful in its way, like a cathedral built by no one's hands. But you know better than to let the calm fool you. The forest is alive with stories, and not all of them end well. Bandits, wolves, even whispers of spirits that lure travellers into the dark. You've heard it all. You're not one for ghost tales, not really, but you keep to the centre of the path, your eyes scanning the underbrush. Better safe than sorry, as the saying goes, though no one ever says what sorry might mean out here. Bandits are the real danger, not the charming rogues of tavern songs with their cloaks and clever quips, but desperate men with hungry eyes and knives sharpened on desperation. You carry a dagger at your belt, its hilt worn smooth from years of gripping it just in case. It's more for show than slaughter. You're no fighter. If a band of outlaws comes for you, your best bet is to run, or better yet, talk. You've gotten good at talking. Once you convinced a thief you were carrying news of a plague sweeping the next town. He vanished into the trees so fast he left his hat behind. You kept it, a tattered trophy now tucked in your satchel. It's not much, but it makes you smile. The weather is another foe, as fickle as any bandit. It's autumn now, and the air has a damp bite that promises rain. Rain is a messenger's curse. It turns the road to a muddy quagmire, slick as betrayal, and soaks your satchel until the parchment inside threatens to dissolve. You've wrapped your letters in oiled cloth, a trick you learned the hard way after delivering a bishop's decree that looked like it had been written by a drunken toddler. He wasn't pleased, but you talked your way out of that one too, with a bow and a few well-placed apologies. You check the satchel now, feeling the reassuring crinkle of the cloth. The wax seals are intact for now. Animals are the third peril, though they're less predictable. Wolves prowl these woods, especially at dusk, their howls carrying on the wind like a warning. You've never seen one up close, and you'd like to keep it that way. Wild boars are worse, ill-tempered beasts with tusks that can rip through leather like it's parchment. You've heard of messengers who crossed a boar's path and didn't walk away. To keep them at bay, you hum softly as you walk, an old ballad about a knight who probably never existed. The tune is off-key, but it's loud enough to warn the wildlife you're coming. It also keeps your spirits up, which is no small thing when the road feels endless. The road itself is a test, a living thing that fights you every step. It's not just dirt and stones. It's a gauntlet of ruts, roots, and sudden dips that can twist an ankle if you're not careful. In spring, it's a swamp. In winter, a sheet of ice. You've seen cartwheels snap on paths like this, leaving merchants cursing their luck. As a messenger, you travel light. No cart, no horse, just your boots and your will. You've learned to read the road like a book, spotting the smoothest patches, the places where the mud won't swallow you whole. It's a small victory, every mile, but it's yours. Your satchel shifts against your hip, a constant reminder of your purpose. The letters inside are more than words. They're power, trust, secrets. A king's decree, a merchant's plea, a lover's regret. You carry them all, blind to their contents but bound to their weight. You don't read them, that's not your place. But you can't help wondering sometimes what stories you're carrying. Will the letter to Brighthaven's lord bring peace or trouble? Will the one for the merchant save his business or sink it? You shake your head, pushing the thoughts away. A messenger's job is to deliver, not to dream. The forest thins now, opening to a stretch of open road where the sun warms your face again. You pause for a moment, taking a sip from your water skin and chewing a piece of the bread you packed. It's stale, but it's fuel. You squint at the horizon, where Brighthaven waits, still hours away. There's a freedom in this life, out here, where no one owns you but the road itself. But freedom has its price. Loneliness, danger, the ache in your bones. You don't dwell on it. You sling the satchel higher, hum your ballad, and keep walking. The road doesn't care about your fears or your dreams. It only asks that you keep going. You reach Brighthaven as the sun dips low, painting the sky in soft hues of amber and grey, like a painter too tired to finish the canvas. Your legs are heavy, your boots crusted with the day's mud, but the sight of the town's low stone wall brings a quiet relief. Brighthaven is smaller than you imagined, a cluster of timber houses huddled together as if seeking warmth. Smoke curls from chimneys, and the faint clatter of a blacksmith's hammer echoes in the dusk. You're a messenger, a bearer of words in a world where words can shift fates, and this town is your destination, for now. The gate guard eyes you with the suspicion reserved for strangers who arrive at odd hours. His helm is slightly askew, and his breath smells faintly of ale. You flash the brass badge pinned to your cloak, a dented disc that marks you as a messenger. It's not much, but it's enough. He grunts, waving you through with a mutter about another bloody letter. You step into Brighthaven, the streets quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's waiting for something to break. Your satchel holds 3 letters, one for the town's lord, one for a merchant, and one for a woman named Elara. Each feels heavier than the last. Delivering messages is no simple handoff. It's a dance, a careful reading of faces and moods. You head first to the central hall, a squat building with a roof that sags like an old man's shoulders. The Lord is there, a stout man with a beard that seems to have a life of its own, curling wildly across his chest. You bow, not too deep, just enough to show you know your place, and present the letter, its wax seal stamped with a royal crest. It's a decree, likely about taxes or troops, judging by the weight of the parchment. His eyes narrow as he scans it, his lips twitching into a scowl. You don't linger. A messenger doesn't ask questions, doesn't take sides. You're gone before he can pin his frustration on you. Next is the merchant, a wiry man named Cedric who runs a shop near the market square. You find him counting coins behind a counter cluttered with bolts of cloth. His letter is about a grain shipment delayed by floods in the lowlands. You hand it over, watching his smile fade as he reads. "Floods again," he mutters, as if you'd personally summoned the rain. He tosses you a copper coin for your trouble, a small gesture that means stew tonight instead of just bread. You pocket it with a nod, leaving him to his grumbling. Merchants are predictable, always fretting over coin, never quite grateful enough. The final letter is for Elara, and it's the one that makes your stomach knot. Love letters, or their opposites, are trouble wrapped in wax. You find her house at the edge of town, a small place with a sagging fence and a garden gone to seed. Elara is younger than you expected, her face pale as she opens the door. The letter's seal bears a noble's crest, and her hands tremble as she takes it. You don't meet her eyes. Some messages carry pain you can feel through the parchment, and this one has that weight. You murmur a polite farewell and turn away, the door clicking shut behind you. A messenger doesn't pry, doesn't linger. Whatever story that letter tells, it's not yours to know. Brighthaven hums with secrets, like every town you've passed through. As a messenger, you're a thread in its weave, catching glimpses of lives you'll never fully understand. The Lord's decree might mean heavier taxes, stirring whispers of discontent in the taverns. The merchant's delayed grain could tip his fortunes, or the town's, if bread runs short. And Elara, well, you hope she's all right, but you've learned not to carry those worries too far. You hear things on the road, rumours of rebellion, tales of betrayal, gossip about who's warming whose bed. You don't repeat them. A loose tongue gets a messenger killed, and you've got enough to worry about without borrowing trouble. The streets are darker now, lanterns flickering to life as the town settles into night. You pass a baker sweeping his doorstep, a group of children chasing a stray dog, a woman muttering about the price of wool. Every town has its pulse, its undercurrent of hope and fear, and you feel it as you walk. Brighthaven seems on edge, like a pot about to boil over. Maybe it's the taxes, or the floods, or something you'll never know. You're just a messenger, passing through, carrying fragments of a world that's always shifting. You find the inn, a low building with a sign so weathered you can barely read it. The door creaks as you step inside, the warmth of the fire washing over you like a sigh. Your satchel is lighter now, its burden delivered, but the road's weight lingers in your bones. You're here for the night, a fleeting guest in a town that's already forgetting you. Tomorrow you'll walk again, to another place, with another satchel full of secrets. For now, you let the fires glow, and the promise of a meal ease you into the quiet. The road will wait. It always does. You've made it to Brighthaven's only inn, a squat smoky building with a roof that leans like it's tired of standing upright. The day's journey clings to you, mud on your boots, ache in your legs, the faint weight of the road in your chest. Night has settled over the town, wrapping it in a quiet that feels both heavy and soft, like a blanket you're not sure you trust. Your satchel, now empty of its letters, rests at your feet as you claim a corner table, its wood worn smooth by years of travellers just like you. You're a messenger, a carrier of words across the medieval world, and this inn is your refuge, however fleeting. The fire crackles in the hearth, casting flickering shadows, and for the first time all day, you let yourself breathe. The innkeeper, a woman with a face like a well-used anvil, slides a bowl of stew your way. It's a murky mix of root vegetables and something that might be mutton, but it's hot, and that's enough. A mug of ale follows, weak and watery, but you sip it gratefully. The copper coin from the merchant you delivered to earlier paid for this. A small victory in a life where victories are measured in dry beds and full stomachs. You settle back, the chair creaking under you, and let the warmth of the fire seep into your bones. The road has taken its toll, but here, for a moment, you can rest. The inn is alive with the low hum of voices. Travellers, locals, a peddler in the corner spinning a tale about a saint's finger bone he's selling. You've heard his kind before, hawking relics that are usually just polished chicken bones wrapped in cheap cloth. You roll your eyes but keep quiet. A messenger learns to listen more than he speaks, to let the world's stories wash over him without getting caught in their current. The peddler's voice rises, boasting about miracles, and a few patrons lean in, their faces lit with curiosity or skepticism. You're not sure which is worse, believing the lies or wanting to. This is what the messenger's life is, a string of in-betweens. You're never truly home, never truly settled. The inn is as close as you get, a temporary harbour where you can mend your boots and your spirit before the next journey. You've stayed in worse places, barns that smelled of damp hay, ditches under a drizzle, once even a hollowed-out tree when a storm caught you unprepared. Brighthaven's Inn, with its smoky air and sagging beams, feels almost luxurious by comparison. You take another spoonful of stew, savouring the warmth, and let your mind wander over the day. The letters you delivered linger in your thoughts, their weight gone from your satchel but not from your mind. The Lord's decree, with its royal seal, probably means higher taxes for Brighthaven's people, maybe even unrest if the whispers you overheard are true. The merchant's letter about the delayed grain shipment could spell lean days ahead for him and the town. And Ilara's letter, sealed with a noble's crest, her trembling hands as she took it haunt you more than you'd like. You've carried enough love letters to know they rarely bring joy. A scorned lover, a broken betrothal, a demand for something she can't give. Whatever it was, you're glad it's not your story. A messenger's job is to deliver, not to dwell. Yet dwell you do, just a little. Towns like Brighthaven are tapestries of secrets, and you're a thread passing through, catching glimpses of patterns you'll never fully see. You've heard fragments of gossip as you walk the streets, mutters about a feud between two families, rumours of a bad harvest, a priest warning of divine judgment. You don't repeat these things, not out of honour, but pragmatism. A messenger with a loose tongue doesn't last long. Still, the pieces collect in your mind, like pebbles in your pocket, each one a story you'll carry but never tell. The inn's warmth makes you drowsy, and you lean back, the chair groaning under your weight. Other travellers fill the room, their faces a blur of fatigue and purpose. There's a tinker with a sack of tools, a pilgrim clutching a staff carved with crosses, a woman who might be a healer or a witch, depending on who's asking. You've seen them all before, or people like them, in a dozen towns along a dozen roads. They're like you, passing through, leaving no mark but the dust they shake from their cloaks. You wonder sometimes what their stories are, but you don't ask. The road teaches you to keep your own counsel. Your life is one of motion, always between places, never rooted. There's freedom in that, a kind you suspect the villagers of Brighthaven, tied to their fields and families, will never know. No lord commands your days, no guild binds your hands. You answer only to the road and the messages you carry. But freedom has its price. You have no hearth to call your own, no one waiting for you at the end of the journey. Your legacy is written in footprints, erased by the next rain or snow. You don't let yourself linger on it too long. It's a thought that sits heavy, like a stone in your satchel. You take another sip of ale, its bitterness a faint comfort. The peddler's voice has dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, and you catch a snippet about a relic that glows in the moonlight. You almost laugh, but you swallow it down. Let him have his audience. You've carried enough holy relics to know they're rarely what they seem. Once you delivered a parcel said to contain a saint's knuckle, only to hear later it was a fox bone sold to a gullible priest. The memory makes you smile, a small, private thing. The world is full of fools, and a messenger sees them all. The fire pops, sending a spark drifting upward, and you watch it fade into the smoke. You think about tomorrow, when you'll rise before dawn to collect new letters for a town called Stoneford, 2 days' walk from here. The road will be there, as it always is, indifferent and endless. You'll walk it, as you always do, with your satchel and your dagger and your off-key ballad to keep the wolves at bay. There's a rhythm to this life, a quiet pulse that carries you forward, one step at a time. For now, though, you're here, in this moment of rest. The innkeeper passes by, her eyes sharp but not unkind. She nods at your empty bowl, and you push it toward her with a murmured thanks. The other patrons are settling in too, some heading to beds upstairs, others nursing their drinks like they're afraid to face the night. You're not afraid, not exactly. The road has made you hardier than that, but you're grateful for this pause, this small island of warmth and stillness in a life of constant motion. You adjust your satchel, now empty but still a comfort at your feet. The letters you carried today are gone, their secrets no longer your burden. Tomorrow there'll be new ones, new roads, new towns with their own whispers and worries. You'll carry them as you always do, a silent thread in the world's vast tapestry. The fire burns low now, its glow softening the edges of the room. You finish your ale, set the mug down, and let your eyes drift closed, just for a moment. The road will wait. It always does. You rise with the dawn, the air in Brighthaven's Inn still thick with the scent of last night's fire and stale ale. Your body protests, stiff from the day's long walk and the thin straw mattress that passed for a bed. But you're a messenger, a wanderer of medieval roads, and stiffness is just part of the bargain. You stretch, your joints creaking like the inn's old beams, and gather your things. The satchel, empty yesterday, now holds a fresh batch of letters, handed to you by the innkeeper as you paid for your meal. They're bound for Stoneford, a town 2 days' walk from here, across fields and forests that promise both beauty and trouble. You sling the satchel over your shoulder, check the oiled cloth protecting the parchment, and step out into the morning. The village is barely awake, its streets cloaked in a soft mist that clings to the ground like a shy ghost. The sun is a faint glow on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pale gold and grey. You pull your cloak tight against the autumn chill, your boots crunching on the gravel path as you head toward the gate. The guard from yesterday is there, his helm still askew, his eyes bleary from a night of too little sleep or too much drink. He gives you a nod, less grudging than before, as if your brief stay has made you slightly less a stranger. You nod back, but your focus is already on the road ahead, stretching out like an old friend who never quite welcomes you but never turns you away. The forest waits just beyond Brighthaven's walls, its trees standing silent and tall, their leaves a rust-coloured canopy that filters the morning light. You step onto the path, setting a steady pace, the kind that carries you far without breaking you. The road is familiar, not in its details. You've never walked this exact stretch before, but in its essence. Every road is the same, in a way. A challenge, a promise, a test. It's rutted and uneven, patched with mud from recent rains, and you pick your steps carefully, avoiding the slick spots that could steal a boot or twist an ankle. You've seen messengers hobbled by less, their journeys cut short by a moment's carelessness. Your satchel shifts against your hip, the letters inside a quiet burden. You don't know what they say. Stoneford's secrets are sealed in wax, but you feel their weight all the same. A merchant's contract perhaps, or a summons to court. Maybe another love letter, fragile with hope or heavy with regret. You've carried them all before, each one a thread in the tapestry of a world that's always moving, always changing. You wonder briefly about the people you delivered to yesterday. The lord with his sour face, the merchant cursing his flooded grain, Ilara with her trembling hands. Their stories are behind you now, left in Brighthaven's dusty streets, but the road has a way of making you carry their echoes. The forest hums with life, birds calling, leaves rustling, the distant snap of a twig that makes you pause, hand drifting to the dagger at your belt. It's probably nothing, a deer or a fox, but you've learned to listen to the road's whispers. Bandits, wolves, boars, they're all out there, waiting for a moment's inattention. You hum your ballad, the one about the knight who never existed. Its off-key notes a small shield against the silence. It keeps the animals at bay and your spirits from sinking too low. The tune is a companion, as constant as the road itself, and you let it carry you forward, one step at a time. There's a strange comfort in this life, in the endless rhythm of walking, delivering, moving on. You're free in a way most aren't, untethered from lords or land, answering only to the messages you carry. But freedom is a lonely thing. You have no home to return to, no family waiting with a warm hearth. Your legacy is written in the dust you leave behind, erased by the wind or the rain. You don't dwell on it, not out here where the road demands your focus, but the thought lingers like a shadow at your heels. You shake it off, adjusting the satchel, and keep walking. Stoneford is waiting, and the letters must get through. You think about the messengers who came before you, their names lost but their stories woven into the world. There was the runner of Marathon who carried news of victory and then dropped dead, his duty done. You're no hero like that. Your deliveries are smaller, quieter, but you're part of the same thread. Every letter you carry is a piece of history, even if it's just a farmer's plea or a noble's complaint about his neighbour's pigs. You smile at the thought, the absurdity of it. The world turns on such things, and you're the one who keeps it turning, one muddy step at a time. The forest gives way to open fields, the sun climbing higher, warming your face. You pause to sip from your water skin, the water cool against your throat. The bread in your satchel is stale, but you tear off a piece, chewing slowly as you scan the horizon. Stoneford is still a day and a half away, but you can picture it already. Another cluster of houses, another set of secrets, another inn where you'll rest before moving on. The road stretches out, endless and indifferent, but you don't mind. It's your world, your purpose, your story, even if no one writes it down. You hum your ballad again, the Knight's Tale a little clearer now in the morning light. The fields roll on, dotted with grazing sheep and the occasional farmer's hut. A bird wheels overhead, its cry sharp and fleeting. You feel the rhythm of the road in your bones, the steady beat of boots against earth. There's another town ahead, another satchel of letters, another set of lives you'll brush against and leave behind. You're a messenger, a fleeting figure in a world of permanence and change, and that's enough. The road goes on, and so do you, carrying the world's words one step at a time. Now let's dive into another story. A story so quiet it's practically drowned out by the clamour of history's louder moments. Imagine a life where your daily work is to shepherd souls into the next world, not with fanfare, but with a soft chant and a flicker of candlelight. The life of a medieval funeral priest isn't exactly the stuff of epic ballads. Ironic, isn't it, that the person who stood at the edge of life and death was often forgotten by the living? Yet here we are, ready to walk through their world, one solemn step at a time. You wake up in medieval Europe, in a small stone cottage pressed against the cold grey walls of a village church. It's 1372, and the world outside is shrouded in the soft, damp mist of pre-dawn. Your bed is a simple straw mattress, lumpy from years of use, tucked beneath a low ceiling that creaks when the wind moves. The air is sharp with the chill of early autumn, and you pull your woolen blanket tighter, reluctant to leave its meagre warmth. You're a funeral priest, a man whose days are spent guiding souls from this world to the next, not with trumpets or glory, but with quiet chants and the flicker of a single candle. It's a strange life, isn't it? To be so close to death, yet so far from the clamour of life. You rise, your knees protesting as they always do, and light a tallow candle on the small wooden table beside your bed. Its flame sputters, casting a trembling glow across the room. The walls are bare, save for a wooden cross hanging above the door and a worn psalter resting on a stool, its pages curling like the edges of a dream. A small chest in the corner holds your vestments, black, frayed, but carefully folded. You're not wealthy, not by any measure, but you're not hungry either. Death, after all, is a reliable employer, always calling you to its side. You pull on your robe, the coarse fabric scratching against your skin, and step outside. The village is still asleep, wrapped in a silence so deep it feels like the world is holding its breath. The fog clings to the ground, curling around the thatched roofs of wattle and daub houses like a cat seeking warmth. A rooster crows in the distance, sharp and insistent, and somewhere a dog answers with a lazy bark. The church looms beside your cottage, its squat stone form more sturdy than grand, its steeple a modest finger pointing to the heavens. You push open the heavy oak door, the hinges groaning as if they too are reluctant to wake. Inside, the air smells of wax, old wood, and a faint sourness, perhaps the ghost of prayers offered over centuries. The church is small, built for a village of no more than 200 souls, but it feels vast in the dim light. The altar stands at the far end, draped in a plain cloth, flanked by 2 iron candlesticks. You light them now, their flames joining your candle's glow, and kneel before the altar. Your breath is visible in the cold, a fleeting cloud that rises with your prayers. The Latin comes easily, a rhythm as familiar as your own heartbeat. Requiem aeternam dona eis, Domine. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. You say it for the dead, but sometimes you wonder if it's for yourself, a plea for peace in a life spent walking with shadows. The village knows you, though not the way they know the baker or the blacksmith. You're the funeral priest, the one they call when the fever lingers too long or the ploughman's heart gives out. It's an odd kind of intimacy. You're there at the end, when tears are fresh and words are few, but you're rarely invited to the moments of joy. The harvest festival, the weddings, the christenings, they belong to the parish priest, with his stern sermons and his ledger of tithes. You, though, you're the one they turn to when the light fades, when the world feels too heavy to bear. There's a dry irony in it, isn't there? You're essential, yet always on the edges. The villagers nod to you in the lane, their eyes sliding away as if death might catch them looking. You don't mind, not really. There's a quiet dignity in your work, a purpose in being the one who stays when others turn away. You move to the small sacristy, checking the supplies you'll need for the day: a vial of holy water, a censer for incense, a book of rites so worn the ink is fading. You don't know who you'll bury today. Maybe no one, maybe old Margaret, who's been coughing since spring. But you're ready, as you always are. Outside the fog is lifting, revealing the churchyard in all its cluttered glory. Graves crowd the space, their wooden crosses tilting like weary soldiers. Some are new, the earth still mounded. Others are so old the names have worn away, leaving only splinters and memory. You pause by the gate, your hand resting on the cold iron. The village is waking now. Smoke curls from chimneys, a cartwheel creaks, a child laughs somewhere in the distance. Life goes on as it always does, but you know better than most how fragile it is. A fever, a fall, a bad winter, any of them can bring you back here, to this patch of earth where the living and the dead share the same ground. You turn back to the church, your steps slow, deliberate. There's work to do, candles to trim, prayers to rehearse, a grave to check if Thomas the gravedigger has been at it. Your life is small, measured in moments of loss, but it's yours. You're not a hero, not a scholar, not even a particularly good priest if you're honest. But you're the one who shows up, who speaks the words, who makes the end feel a little less like falling into the dark. And for now, as the first rays of sunlight break through the mist, that's enough. You're kneeling in the churchyard, your hands tugging at stubborn weeds that cling to the base of a weathered cross. The morning is quiet, the kind of quiet that settles over a village like a soft blanket, broken only by the distant clink of a blacksmith's hammer and the low hum of bees in the clover. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest in a small medieval village, your life woven into the moments when others' lives unravel. The air smells of damp earth and the faint sweetness of fading wildflowers, and the sun is just high enough to warm your back through your worn black robe. You pause, brushing dirt from your fingers, and that's when you hear the patter of running feet. A boy rounds the corner of the church, his face flushed, his chest heaving. "Father," he gasps, skidding to a stop. "It's old Margaret. She's gone." You nod, the news settling over you like dust. Margaret was old, older than most. Some whispered she was nearing 60, a number that feels like a myth in a world where 40 is a triumph. Her cough had lingered through the summer, a dry rattle that grew quieter as her strength faded. You'd seen it coming, though you never say so. Death doesn't surprise you anymore, but it still carries a weight, like a stone you slip into your pocket and carry for the day. You stand, brushing the earth from your knees, and gather your things from the sacristy. A small glass vial of holy water, its surface catching the light like a tiny star. A bronze censer, blackened from years of swinging incense. And your book of rites, its leather cover soft as skin from constant handling. You tuck them into a satchel, sling it over your shoulder, and set out for Margaret's cottage. The village lanes are narrow, winding between houses of wattle and daub, their thatched roofs sagging under the weight of time. A woman pauses her sweeping to nod at you, her eyes flicking away quickly, as if death might follow you like a shadow. You're used to it, the way people look at you, need you, but never quite want you near. The cottage is at the edge of the village, its walls leaning slightly, like an old man resting on a staff. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of herbs, rosemary and thyme, strewn across the floor to mask the scent of sickness, and something heavier, the unmistakable stillness of death. Margaret lies on a pallet in the corner, her face pale and sunken, her hands folded neatly across her chest. Her daughter Ellen stands nearby, her eyes red but dry, as if she's cried herself empty. Ellen's husband John hovers behind her, his broad shoulders hunched, and their 3 children cling to each other, their faces a mix of fear and curiosity. You've seen this tableau before, the way grief shrinks a room, makes people small and quiet, as if they're afraid to take up space in a world that's just lost someone. You step forward, your voice low and steady, like water over stones. May her soul find rest in the arms of the Lord, you say, and the words feel like a thread stitching the moment together. You set your satchel down and begin the rites. First, the holy water, sprinkled gently over Margaret's body, the droplets catching the dim light from the cottage's single window. Then the censer, its chain clinking softly as you swing it, releasing curls of incense that rise like prayers. You open your book, though you hardly need it, and begin the office of the dead. Libera me, Domine, de morte aeterna. Deliver me, O Lord, from eternal death. The Latin is a rhythm, a pulse, filling the room with something ancient and unyielding. The family watches, their hands clasped, their breaths shallow, as if your words are a rope they can cling to in the dark. There's an irony here, one you've felt 100 times. You're the one they call when hope is gone, when the physician has packed his herbs and the prayers for healing have failed. You're not a healer, not a miracle worker, just a man with a book and a voice, trying to make sense of the senseless. Yet there's power in it, isn't there? Not the kind that builds castles or wins wars, but the kind that holds a family together when the world feels like it's crumbling. You glance at Ellen, her face etched with lines that weren't there last spring, and you wonder what she sees when she looks at you. A priest? A stranger? A reminder of what's coming for us all? You move to Margaret's body, your hands gentle as you begin the washing. It's humble work, intimate in a way that makes your chest ache. You dip a cloth in a basin of water, wiping her face, her hands, her feet, preparing her for the shroud. The linen is plain, a little patched, but it's clean, and you wrap her carefully, folding the fabric with the same care you'd give a sleeping child. Ellen watches, her lips trembling, and you meet her eyes for a moment, offering a small nod. It's not much, but it's what you have, a silent promise that you'll see this through. When the rites are done, Ellen presses a coin into your hand. A farthing, maybe two, enough for a loaf of bread or a cup of ale. "Thank you, Father," she whispers, her voice barely audible. You nod again, slipping the coin into your robe, and promise to say a mass for Margaret's soul tomorrow. It's a small thing, but it matters. To her, to the village, to the rhythm of this life you've chosen. You step outside, the air cool and sharp after the stuffiness of the cottage. The sun is low now, painting the sky in shades of lavender and gold, and the village is settling into evening. A child runs past chasing a hoop, and the sound of laughter feels like a small defiance against the weight of the day. You walk back toward the church, your steps slow, the satchel lighter now, but your heart heavier. There's a quiet absurdity to your work. You spend your days ushering souls into eternity, yet you're still just a man who gets mud on his robe, who forgets the words to a prayer now and then. You're not holy, not really, but you're here, showing up when no one else can. The churchyard comes into view, its graves like silent sentinels, and you pause at the gate. Tomorrow you'll be back here, preparing Margaret's grave with Thomas the gravedigger, saying the words that send her on her way. For now, though, you let the evening settle around you, the sky deepening to twilight, the stars just beginning to prick through the dusk. You breathe in, the air tasting of earth and smoke, and head inside, ready to close the day as softly as you began it. You're back in the churchyard, standing among the graves as the afternoon sun slants through the bare branches of an old yew tree. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest in a small medieval village, your days shaped by the quiet task of sending souls to their rest. The air carries the sharp scent of turned earth and the faint musk of decaying leaves, and your black robe brushes against the grass, damp from last night's rain. The churchyard is a crowded patchwork, graves pressed so close together you have to step carefully, as if the dead might mind your boots on their rest. You're here to prepare for old Margaret's burial, her passing still fresh from this morning's visit to her cottage. The graves tell a story of their own, don't they? Some are new, the soil still mounded, the wooden crosses sharp-edged and pale. Others are old, their markers weathered to stubs, names long since blurred by wind and time. You pass a tiny grave, no bigger than a cradle, and your heart catches a child gone before its first summer. Nearby is a larger one, its cross tilting like a weary soldier, belonging to a farmer you buried 3 winters ago, his body worn out by the plough. You've buried so many here, mothers lost to childbirth, old men felled by fever, young men broken by a fall or a fight. Each one is a name, a face, a moment you carry, like stones in a sack that never quite empties. You hear the rhythmic thud of a shovel before you see him. Thomas the grave digger, his broad hands making quick work of Margaret's grave. He's a big man, with a laugh that could startle the crows, though today he's quiet, his brow slick with sweat despite the cool air. Hard ground today, he mutters, pausing to lean on his shovel. Margaret'll rest deep, though. No wolves'll get her. You smile faintly, the corner of your mouth twitching. Thomas always talks about wolves, as if they're lurking just beyond the village, waiting for a poorly dug grave. You haven't seen one in years, but you let him have his story. It's his way of filling the silence, just as your prayers are yours. You kneel beside the half-dug grave, checking the depth, though Thomas knows his work better than anyone. The earth is dark, heavy with clay, and you run your fingers through it, feeling its cold weight. There's something grounding about it, this act of preparing a place for the dead. It's not glamorous. No one writes songs about digging graves, but it's honest. You glance at the church, its stone walls solid against the fading light, and think of the irony. You spend your life tending to endings, yet the world keeps turning, oblivious. The baker's still kneading dough, the children are still chasing hoops, and here you are, making room for one more. The village begins to gather as the sun dips lower, a small crowd in patched tunics and worn shoes, their faces etched with the quiet grief of those who've done this before. Ellen, Margaret's daughter, stands at the front, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles are white. Her children huddle close, their eyes wide, as if the grave might swallow them too. You nod to them, a small gesture of reassurance, and take your place at the head of the grave. Your book of rites is open in your hands, though you know the words by heart. You begin, your voice soft but steady, like a river finding its course. De profundis clamavi ad te, Domine. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. The words fall gently, weaving through the crowd, and you sprinkle holy water over the grave, the droplets catching the last of the sunlight like tiny sparks. Thomas lowers Margaret's shrouded body, the linen stark against the dark earth, and the crowd murmurs, Amen, as he begins to shovel dirt back in. The sound is rhythmic, almost soothing, each clod a note in a song no one wants to sing. You watch the grave fill, the mound rising, and feel the familiar weight settle in your chest. It's not sadness, not exactly, just the heaviness of being the one who stays, who sees it through. There's a quiet absurdity to your role, isn't there? You're the keeper of last moments, the one who gives shape to chaos, yet you're still just a man who gets dirt under his nails, who trips over roots in the churchyard. You're not a saint, not even close. You've forgotten prayers mid-sentence, spilled holy water, mispronounced a name in the middle of a rite. But you show up every time, and maybe that's enough. The villagers don't need perfection. They need you to stand here, to say the words, to make death feel like something other than the end of everything. The burial is over quickly, as burials often are. The crowd disperses, their footsteps soft on the grass, their voices low as they return to their hearths and chores. Ellen lingers a moment, her eyes on the fresh grave, then turns away, her children trailing behind her. You stay, watching the sky deepen to a bruised purple, the first stars faint against the dusk. Thomas claps you on the shoulder, his shovel slung over his back like a warrior's sword. Another one done, he says, and you nod, the words too simple for the weight they carry. You walk the churchyard one last time, checking the crosses, straightening one that's tipped too far. The air is cooler now, the night settling in like a guest who plans to stay. You think of Margaret, her cough finally silent, her soul. Where? You don't know, not really. You say the prayers, you light the candles, but the mystery remains, vast and unyielding. Doubt creeps in sometimes, a whisper in the dark, but you push it away. Your job isn't to know, it's to do, to be the one who stands at the edge and doesn't flinch. The church door creaks as you step inside, the candles still burning low on the altar. You'll be back tomorrow for a mass, for another grave, for another soul. For now, you let the silence of the church wrap around you, its walls holding centuries of prayers, of losses, of lives that ended here. You're not saving the world, not changing it, just holding it together, one grave at a time. And as you blow out the candles, the darkness feels less like an end and more like a pause, a breath before the next day begins. You're standing at the altar of the village church, the morning light filtering through narrow windows, casting pale slants across the stone floor. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest, your life a quiet thread woven through the endings of others. The air smells of wax and old incense, and the chill of the night lingers in the walls, making your breath faintly visible as you prepare for old Margaret's Mass. The church is nearly empty, just Ellen and her eldest son Thomas sitting in the front pew, their faces pale in the glow of the candles you lit before dawn. You adjust your black robe, its hem frayed from years of brushing against graves, and open your psalter, though the words are etched in your memory like carvings in stone. You begin the Requiem Mass, your voice low and steady, a soft current carrying the moment forward. Requiem aeternam. Dona Eis, Domine. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. The Latin fills the small church, echoing faintly off the rafters, and you feel the familiar rhythm settle over you, like a hand smoothing a wrinkled cloth. The Requiem is your work, your purpose, a prayer not for the living, but for those already gone, a bridge between this world and whatever lies beyond. You glance at Ellen, her hands folded tightly in her lap, and wonder what she hears in your words. Hope? Comfort? Or just the sound of duty, done as it's always been? There's a quiet irony in this moment, isn't there? You stand here, chanting for Margaret's soul, yet you're no closer to understanding where she's gone than anyone else. The church says heaven or hell, purgatory for those in between, but you've buried too many to believe it's that simple. Babies who never drew breath, old women like Margaret who lived long enough to become stories, men cut down by a fever or a fall, where do they all go? You push the thought away, focusing on the words, dies irae, dies illa, day of wrath, that day. The hymn is meant to stir fear, to warn of judgment, but you say it gently, like a lullaby for the dead, letting the notes fall soft and slow. You move through the Mass, your hands steady as you raise the chalice, its surface worn smooth by years of use. The bread and wine are simple, the village too poor for ornate vestments or silver, but there's a kind of beauty in the plainness, a truth that doesn't need embellishment. You speak the Agnus Dei, Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world, and sprinkle holy water over the altar, the droplets catching the light like fleeting stars. Ellen and Thomas bow their heads, their silence louder than any prayer, and you feel the weight of their trust in you, fragile as a candle flame. You've always found the Requiem strangely comforting, not for its promises but for its rhythm, its insistence that death is part of a larger pattern. You imagine Margaret's soul, light as a breath, drifting upward through the church's rafters, past the grey sky and into the vast unknown. It's a thought you hold lightly, not because you believe it wholly, but because it's a good thing to picture, a way to make the end feel less like falling into darkness. You've said these words for so many, hundreds maybe in your years as a priest, yet each time feels new, as if the soul you're praying for might hear you, might need you to get it right. When the Mass ends, Ellen rises, her son trailing behind her. She approaches the altar, her apron twisted in her hands, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Will she be all right, Father?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper. You want to give her certainty, a promise carved in stone, but all you have is what you've always had. "She's with God now," you say, and the words feel small but true, like a seed planted in uncertain soil. Ellen nods, her lips trembling, and turns to leave, Thomas's hand on her shoulder. The church door creaks as they step out, and you're alone again, the silence settling like dust. You linger, tidying the altar, polishing the chalice with a cloth until it gleams faintly in the dim light. The task is small, but it anchors you, gives your hands something to do while your mind wanders. You think of the book system, Book of the Dead, its pages yellowed and curling like the edges of old memories. You open it, adding Margaret's name in small, careful letters, and close it with a sigh. The irony of your life isn't lost on you, spending your days recording names that will fade while your own name goes unwritten. You're the keeper of endings, yet your own story feels like a shadow, barely noticed against the weight of the dead. You step outside, the morning air cool and sharp, and lock the church door behind you. The village is waking, smoke curling from chimneys, a cart rattling down the lane. You pull your robe tighter and head toward your cottage, the book still in your hands. There's a strange peace in these quiet moments, when the world is still, and your work feels like a secret shared only with the dead. "You've done your part for Margaret," said the words, lit the candles. "Tomorrow there'll be another name, another grave, but for now you've given her a proper farewell." You slip the book onto its shelf and sit by the small fire in your cottage, the warmth seeping into your bones. It's enough, you think, to be the one who remembers, even if no one remembers you. You're sitting in your small stone cottage, the fire in the hearth casting a warm, flickering glow across the rough walls. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest in a quiet medieval village, your days shaped by the endings of others. Night has settled over the world outside, wrapping the village in a stillness broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the soft sigh of the wind through the thatch. The air smells of wood smoke and damp earth, and your hands, still dusted with the day's work, cradle a cup of weak ale, its bitter taste familiar, grounding. You're alone, as you often are, the fire your only company, its pops and crackles a kind of conversation in the dark. Your life is small, isn't it? No grand adventures to recount, no tales of valour to share over a flagon at the alehouse. You're the man who shows up when the story ends, when the laughter fades and the candles burn low. You think of old Margaret, buried today, her grave now just another mound in the crowded churchyard. You think of Ellen, her eyes heavy with grief, and the way her son's hand rested on her shoulder, steadying her as they walked away. You've seen so many moments like that, hands reaching, eyes meeting, silences that say more than words ever could. They're the threads that stitch your days together, fragile but unbreakable. There's a quiet irony in your work, a truth you've carried for years. You're the keeper of last moments, the one who speaks the prayers, who folds the shroud, who makes death feel like something other than chaos. Yet you're no one's hero, no one's confidant. The villagers nod to you in the lanes, but they don't linger, as if death might cling to your robe like burrs. You don't mind, not really. There's a strange peace in being the one who stays, who sees what others turn away from. You sip your ale, the firelight dancing in the dark liquid, and let your mind wander to the graves you've tended, the names you've written in the church's book of the dead. You lean back in your chair, the wood creaking under your weight, and stare into the flames. Each grave is a story, isn't it? The child who never saw her first spring, the farmer whose hands were rough as the earth he tilled, the old woman whose cough finally fell silent. You've buried them all, your voice a steady rhythm through their endings. Requiem aeternam dona eis, Domine. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. You wonder, not for the first time, what it all means. Do the dead hear your prayers? Do they need them? Or are you just a man muttering Latin to the stars, hoping someone, somewhere, is listening? The thought is a familiar one, heavy but not crushing. You've long since made peace with the questions, with the not knowing. Your job isn't to solve the mystery of death, it's to stand at its edge, to offer words when words are all that's left. You think of the churchyard, its crosses tilting like weary sentinels, and the way the earth holds each soul, gentle as a mother's arms. There's beauty in that, even if it's a beauty no one else sees. You're not saving the world, not changing it, just holding it together, one quiet moment at a time. The fire pops, sending a spark skittering across the hearth, and you smile faintly. There's a kind of poetry in your life, though you'd never call it that. You're the one who lights the candles, who swings the censer, who says the words that let the living let go. It's not glamorous, not the stuff of ballads, but it's yours. You set the cup down, its contents half finished, and lean forward, resting your elbows on your knees. Tomorrow will bring another call, a fever, a fall, a heart that simply stops. You'll be there, as you always are, with your book and your prayers, your voice a soft thread in the tapestry of the village. You rise, your joints stiff from the day's work, and add a log to the fire. The flames flare briefly, casting shadows that dance like ghosts on the walls. You think of your own ending, inevitable as the turning of the seasons. Who will bury you? Who will say the requiem for a priest who spent his life saying it for others? The thought isn't sad, just curious, like a question you'll leave unanswered. You've seen enough to know that life goes on, that the world doesn't pause for anyone, not even you. You cross the room to your straw mattress, the blanket folded neatly at its foot. The cottage is small, its walls close, but it feels like enough. A place to rest, to gather yourself for the next day's work. You blow out the candle on the table, the darkness settling soft and heavy, and lie down, the straw rustling beneath you. The fire's glow lingers, a faint warmth against the night, and you close your eyes. The world outside is quiet, the village asleep, the stars keeping watch above. You drift, your thoughts softening, and imagine the souls you've buried. Margaret, the child, the farmer, watching from somewhere beyond the dark. Sleep comes gently, like a tide easing in. Your life is a small one, measured in graves and prayers, but it's enough. You've done your part, stood at the edge, spoken the words, and as you slip into dreams, the fire burning low, you feel a kind of peace, as if the night itself is saying, "Rest now, priest. Your work is done for tonight." You wake up in medieval Europe, sometime around the year 1300. The air is sharp, carrying the damp scent of earth and straw, with a faint whiff of wood smoke curling through it. You're a child, maybe 9 or 10, and the world feels vast, heavy, like a cloak too big for your shoulders. Your parents are gone. Maybe the plague took them, slipping through the village like a thief in the night, or perhaps they just vanished, as people sometimes did in these times. You're not alone in this fate. Orphans were as common as the muddy ruts in the road, scattered across villages like leaves after a storm. You're standing in a village square, your bare feet pressing against uneven cobblestones still slick from last night's rain. Around you, the world hums with the rhythm of survival. A blacksmith's hammer rings out, steady as a heartbeat. A woman haggles over a sack of barley, her voice sharp but tired. A stray dog sniffs at something unidentifiable in the dirt, its ribs sharp against its mangy fur. Nobody looks at you, not really. To them you're just another small shadow in a world full of them, one more child with no name worth remembering. But you're not helpless, not entirely. History whispers of orphans like you, scrappy, resourceful, with a knack for slipping through the cracks. You had to be, to survive. The irony is almost laughable if you had the energy to laugh. While knights clashed for glory and lords schemed in their stone halls, it was children like you who kept the world turning. You ran errands for a crust of bread, swept stables for a corner to sleep in, or, if luck was kind, caught the eye of someone with a soft heart. The grand chronicles, those dusty tomes filled with tales of kings and conquests, don't bother with the likes of you. No ballads for Orphan Tom or Little Agnes. But the gaps in those stories, the spaces between the lines, they're where you live. And your story, quiet as it is more human than any knight's tale. You take a step forward, your toes curling against the cold stone. The village square is alive, a patchwork of noise and movement. A cart creaks by, its wheels wobbling under a load of turnips. A gaggle of geese waddle past, hissing at anyone who gets too close. You weave through the crowd, eyes sharp for opportunity. Survival, you're learning, is a game of inches, a dance of small victories. Your stomach growls, a reminder that you haven't eaten since yesterday, when you found a bruised apple in the ditch by the mill. It wasn't much, but it was yours. You spot a baker's stall across the square, its wooden table laden with loaves that smell like warmth and promise. The baker, a broad man with flour-dusted hands and a scowl that could curdle milk, is busy arguing with a customer over the price of a rye loaf. You edge closer, heart thumping. A heel of bread, small and slightly burnt, sits too close to the table's edge. It's stale, probably destined for the pigs, but to you, it's a treasure. You glance at the baker, still distracted, then move, quick as a sparrow. Your fingers snatch the bread, and you're gone, ducking into an alley before anyone notices. The alley is narrow, shadowed by timbered houses leaning toward each other like gossiping neighbours. You crouch behind a barrel, clutching your prize. The bread is hard, its crust cracked like old leather, but you tear into it with relish. Each bite is a small defiance, a quiet rebellion against a world that doesn't care if you starve. You chew slowly, savouring the faintly sour taste, letting it fill the hollow in your belly. It's not enough, not really, but it's something. And something is always better than nothing. You lean back against the barrel, catching your breath. The alley is quiet, save for the distant clatter of the square and the soft drip of water from a leaky roof. You're invisible here, and that's your strength. Nobody expects much from an orphan, which means nobody's watching when you slip through the cracks. You've learned to listen, to watch, to piece together the world from fragments. The baker's argument wasn't just about bread. It was about coin, about survival, just like you. The woman with the barley sack wasn't just buying food. She was planning for winter, for the lean months when the fields lie fallow. Everyone's playing the same game, only the stakes are different. You tuck the rest of the bread into your tunic, saving it for later. The sun is climbing now, painting the sky a pale gold, and you know you can't stay still for long. A stationary orphan is a vulnerable one, too easy to spot, too easy to shoo away, or worse. You need a plan, a purpose, even if it's just for today. Maybe you'll head to the church, where the priest might offer a bowl of watery soup if you look pitiful enough. Or maybe you'll try the Weavers' Guild, where they sometimes need small hands to carry baskets of wool. The world doesn't owe you anything, but you're learning how to carve out a place in it, one careful step at a time. As you step back into the square, the crowd parts around you like water around a stone. A merchant brushes past, his cloak heavy with the scent of spices you'll never afford. A child younger than you clings to his mother's skirts, staring at you with wide, curious eyes. You don't meet his gaze. Envy is a luxury you can't afford. Instead, you focus on the path ahead. The cobblestones cool under your feet, the air sharp with possibility. You're a shadow, yes, but a shadow that moves, that survives. And somewhere in the unwritten corners of history, your story is taking shape. It's not grand, not the stuff of legends, but it's yours. You take another step, and the village hums on, unaware of the small, stubborn life weaving through its heart. You wake to the toll of a bell, its deep chime rolling across the village like a wave. It's morning in medieval Europe, around 1300, and you're a child of 9 or 10, an orphan in a world that barely notices you. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of damp stone and last night's rain. You've slept in a corner of a stable, curled in straw that smells faintly of horse and earth. Your stomach is a quiet ache, but you're used to it. You brush the straw from your tunic and step out, drawn toward the church that looms over the village like a stern parent watching its wayward children. The church is impossible to miss, its stone walls rising above the timbered houses, its steeple piercing the pale dawn sky. You cross the square, weaving past a cart of cabbages and a woman shooing chickens from her doorstep. The cobblestones are slick under your bare feet, and you move carefully, a small shadow among the morning bustle. The church is the heart of this world, a place of refuge and rules, and for an orphan like you, it's both a lifeline and a labyrinth. You push open the heavy oak door, and the air shifts, cooler, thicker, laced with the scent of incense and melted wax. Inside, the church is dim, lit only by slants of light filtering through narrow windows. The stone floor is cold, and your footsteps echo faintly as you slip toward a pew at the back. A priest stands at the altar, his voice a low drone as he mutters in Latin, words that slide past you like water over smooth stones. You don't understand them, but you don't need to. The church loves orphans, or so it claims. They call you God's children, a phrase that sounds warm until you realize it often means God's unpaid help. You've seen it before. Children like you, scrubbing floors, hauling water, or sitting through endless sermons that feel like a spell to summon sleep. You kneel in the pew, not out of piety, but because it's expected. Your eyes wander, taking in the world around you. A widow in a patched shawl drops a coin into the alms box, her face etched with worry. A merchant, his cloak embroidered with threads you'll never touch, mutters about taxes under his breath. You're invisible here, just as you are outside, and that suits you fine. Invisibility is your shield. The priest might notice you if you look too hungry, might offer a bowl of thin soup or a crust of bread. But there's always a catch. Charity comes with chores, and you've learned to weigh the cost of every kindness. Here's the irony, tucked into the folds of history like a forgotten coin. The church preached charity with fervour, wrote endless treatises on the virtue of giving, yet its doors weren't always open to the likes of you. Monks and nuns could be kind, but kindness was rationed, doled out like grain in a lean year. Some orphans were lucky, taken into monasteries, taught to read or sing, given a path to something more. Others, like you, were handed a bucket or a broom and told to earn their keep. The records don't linger on these details, but they're there, in the margins, where your story lives. You catch the eye of a nun near the vestry, her face stern but not cruel. She beckons you over and you go, because refusing isn't an option. "Can you carry firewood?" she asks, her voice soft but firm. You nod, and she points to a pile of logs by the door. It's heavy work for a child, but you don't complain. The task might earn you a spot by the kitchen fire tonight, maybe a bowl of pottage, watery, with bits of turnip and barley, but warm. You hoist the wood, arms trembling, and follow her to the rectory, where a fire crackles in a stone hearth. As you stack the logs, you listen. The nuns are gossiping, their voices a soft hum over the snap of the fire. They're talking about a local lord who's fallen out of favour, his land seized by a rival. You don't care about lords, but you file the information away. Knowledge is currency, even for an orphan. The nuns don't notice you listening, don't notice you at all, and that's how you like it. You finish the task and slip back to the church, where the priest is still droning. You sit again, letting the rhythm of his voice lull you, not quite to sleep, but to a place where the world feels softer, less sharp. By evening, the nun calls you back to the kitchen. The pottage is as thin as you expected, but it's hot, and you sip it slowly, savouring the warmth that spreads through your chest. The nuns are kinder than you thought, or maybe they're just tired. One of them, younger than the rest, offers you a smile as she hands you a scrap of bread. You take it, mumbling thanks, and tuck it into your tunic for later. You've learned to save what you can, to plan for the lean hours. As you leave the church, the bell tolls again, marking vespers. The sky is bruising into dusk, and the village is quieter now, the bustle of the day fading into the clink of mugs in the tavern and the distant low of cattle. You're still hungry, still uncertain, but for tonight you've got a full belly and a place to sleep. Maybe the stable again, maybe a corner of the church porch if the watch doesn't shoo you off. The church's shadow is long, and you're still in it, but you're learning its rhythms, its rules. You're a small thread in its vast tapestry, unnoticed but stubborn, weaving your own path through the cracks. The morning sun slants through the village, painting the muddy streets in shades of gold. It's around 1300, and you're a child of 9 or 10, an orphan navigating a medieval world that doesn't pause for you. You've slept in a stable again, nestled in straw that prickles your skin but keeps the chill at bay. Your stomach grumbles, a familiar ache, but you've got a plan today. You brush the straw from your patched tunic and head out, your bare feet steady on the uneven ground. The village is stirring. Carts creak, voices rise, and the air carries the sharp scent of smoke and wool. You're bound for the Weavers' Guild, where work might mean a meal. The guild hall sits at the edge of the square, its timbered walls weathered but proud. The air hums with the rhythmic clack of looms, and the scent of raw wool, earthy, slightly sour, drifts through the open door. Guilds are the pulse of the town, their crafts binding the community like threads in a tapestry. For an orphan like you, they're a chance at something more than survival, though the path is never easy. You linger at the threshold, peering inside. A woman with hands like knotted rope looks up from her loom, her eyes narrowing as they settle on you. She's sizing you up, weighing your worth against the trouble you might bring. "Can you carry a basket?" she asks, her voice gruff but not unkind. You nod, trying not to seem too eager, though your heart leaps at the chance. She thrusts a heavy basket of dyed wool into your arms, blues and reds that must have cost a fortune in Woden Madder. "Take this to the dyer across town. she says. Don't dawdle. The basket is heavy, its rough weave digging into your arms, but you don't complain. You step back into the street, the mud squelching under your feet, and set off. Here's the irony, tucked into the folds of history like a dropped coin. Guilds were fiercely protective of their secrets, guarding their crafts like dragons hoarding gold, yet they'd take in orphans like you. Sometimes it was pity, more often it was practicality. Small hands were useful for small tasks, fetching, carrying, sweeping, work that didn't require skill but demanded effort. You're no apprentice, not yet. That would come later, if you're lucky, after years of proving yourself. But for now, this basket is your ticket to a meal, maybe a corner to sleep in. History doesn't shout about the orphans who rose to become master craftsmen, but they existed, their names whispered in guild ledgers rather than sung in ballads. The streets are alive now, a tangle of noise and movement. You dodge a cart piled with barrels, its driver cursing as a wheel sticks in the mud. A gaggle of children chase a hoop, their laughter sharp and fleeting. You keep moving, the basket heavy but your steps sure. The dyer's shop is on the far side of town, past the butcher and the tanner's yard, where the air turns acrid. You deliver the wool without incident, and the dyer, a wiry man with stained hands, grunts his approval. You linger, hoping for something more, but he waves you off. No matter. The weaver might reward you when you return. Back at the guild hall, the woman inspects your empty basket and tosses you a hunk of cheese, hard and yellowed, but edible. Good enough, she says, already turning back to her loom. You slip outside, crouching in the shadow of the guild hall to eat. The cheese is sharp, crumbling in your mouth, and you savour each bite, tucking half into your tunic for later. You've learned to stretch every gift, to plan for the hours when no one's feeling generous. The street is your domain now, the gutter your fallback. You're invisible here, weaving through the crowd like a thread through cloth, unnoticed but present. You pause by a tavern where a cooper's apprentice is rolling barrels toward the door. He's maybe a year older than you, lanky and tired, but he nods as you pass. You've seen him before, shared a fire with him once when the nights turned cold. He doesn't say much, but you know he's like you, another shadow scraping by. You think about helping him, maybe earning a sip of ale or a story, but the weaver's voice echoes in your head. Don't dawdle. You move on, back toward the square. The guild hall looms behind you, a reminder of what could be. If you're clever, if you watch and learn, you might one day work a loom or hammer iron. Some orphans did. History's quiet about it, but the evidence is there in the guild rolls, in the names of apprentices who started with nothing but grit. For now, though, you're a runner, a carrier, a pair of hands for hire. The sun is high, the air warm with the promise of a long day. You slip back into the crowd, eyes scanning for the next opportunity. A dropped apple, a careless baker, a guildswoman who needs another basket carried. The village hums on, its rhythm steady but unforgiving. You're a small part of it, a thread too fine for most to notice, but you're here, moving, surviving, carving out a place in the gutter and the guild. The cheese in your tunic is a small victory, a reminder that you're not just a shadow, you're a child, stubborn and alive, weaving your own story through the cracks of a world that barely sees you. The sun is dipping low, casting long shadows across the village as you move through its streets, a child of 9 or 10 in the year 1300. You're an orphan, a small figure in a medieval world that hums with the clatter of carts and the murmur of voices. The day has been long, carrying wool for the weaver, dodging the town watch, scavenging a bruised pear from the market's edge. Your tunic holds a crumbling piece of cheese, saved from earlier, and your bare feet are caked with mud. You're tired, but you keep moving. Stillness is a luxury you can't afford. You head toward the river, where the air smells of wet stone and reeds. The village is quieter now, the market's bustle fading into the soft rhythm of evening. You've slept in the stable most nights, curled in straw beside a horse that doesn't mind your company, but tonight you're restless, drawn to the water's edge. There, by the riverbank, an old woman is washing linens, her hands red from the cold water. Her face is like a winter apple, wrinkled, tough, but warm in its own way. She's a laundress for the local lord, her days spent scrubbing stains from fine cloth you'll never wear. You pause, watching her work, your shadow blending with the dusk. She notices you, her eyes sharp but not unkind. "Hungry?" she asks, not waiting for an answer. She reaches into a basket and pulls out a boiled egg, its shell cracked but whole. She holds it out, and you hesitate, unused to gifts without strings. "Take it," she says, her voice soft as the river's murmur. You do, mumbling thanks, and peel the egg carefully, savouring its warmth against your fingers. The yolk is soft, a small burst of richness, and you eat slowly, letting the moment linger. Why is she kind? You don't know. Maybe she lost a child of her own, or maybe she sees something in your face, a spark of resilience, a shadow of her younger self. History doesn't record these moments, these fleeting acts that kept orphans like you alive. The chronicles drone on about battles and bishops, but the real story of the medieval world is here, in the quiet spaces where strangers share what little they have. You tuck the eggshell into the grass, a small offering to the earth, and nod to the woman before moving on. You wander back toward the village, the egg a warm memory in your belly. Near the tanner's yard, where the air turns sharp with the stench of hides, you spot a familiar figure, a lanky boy, maybe a year older than you, hauling a bundle of leather. He's the tanner's apprentice, his hands stained and his shoulders slumped from work. You've seen him before, shared a fire with him on a cold night. He's like you, another shadow scraping by, but he has a gift. He tells stories, wild tales of dragons and saints that make the world feel less heavy. He notices you and grins, setting down his bundle. "You again," he says, his voice light despite the day's labour. You sit with him by a small fire outside the tanner's shop, the flames casting flickering shadows on the wall. He spins a tale about a hermit who outwitted a demon, his words painting pictures in the air. You listen, tucked into the shadows, your knees drawn up, the world shrinking to the crackle of the fire and the rise and fall of his voice. For a moment, you're not an orphan, not a scavenger, just a child, lost in a story. Here's the irony, hidden in history's folds like a forgotten thread. Medieval life was brutal, a constant scrabble for survival, yet people found ways to give. Not always, not everywhere, but enough to matter. The laundress's egg, the apprentice's story, these are the stitches that hold your days together. You don't have a family, a home, or a name that anyone cares to remember, but you have these moments, small and unrecorded, that keep you going. You offer to help the apprentice tomorrow, a quiet trade for his kindness. He nods, not asking for anything, but you know the rules of this world. Nothing is free, yet some gifts come closer than others. As the fire dies down, you rise, brushing ash from your tunic. The village is dark now, the streets empty save for the occasional flicker of a lantern. You head back to the stable, where the horse's steady breathing will lull you to sleep. The night is cool, the stars sharp above the thatched roofs. You're still a shadow, still a child weaving through the cracks of a world that doesn't see you. But tonight, you carry the warmth of an egg, the echo of a story, the weight of small kindnesses that no chronicle will ever name. They're enough to keep you moving, to keep you alive, one careful step at a time. The sky is a deep bruise of dusk, and you're a child of perhaps 12 now, in the year 1300, an orphan threading your way through a medieval village. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, and your bare feet, tougher than they were a year ago, tread lightly on the cooling mud of the street. You've survived months of scavenging, of carrying wool for weavers and fetching water for nuns, piecing together a life from scraps. Tonight, you're headed back to the stable, your familiar refuge, where straw and the soft snuffle of a horse offer a kind of home. Your tunic, patched and frayed, holds a crumbling piece of cheese and half a crust of bread, small treasures earned from a day's labour. The village is settling into night, its bustle fading into the clink of mugs from the tavern and the distant low of cattle. You move like a shadow, unnoticed by the weaver locking her shop or the merchant hurrying home with a lantern. You've learned the art of invisibility, a skill honed by necessity. History won't remember you. No chronicle will sing of the child who swept stables or dodged the town watch. But you're here, alive, a stubborn thread in the tapestry of this world, weaving a story that no one will write but everyone like you lived. You pause by the church, its stone walls looming in the twilight. The bell is silent, but its echo lingers in your memory, marking the hours of prayers and chores. You think of the nun's watery pottage, the priest's droning Latin, the fleeting kindness of a boiled egg from a laundress by the river. These moments, small and unrecorded, have been your lifeline. The irony is sharp, like a blade tucked in a haystack. Medieval life was a grind of survival, yet it was stitched together by acts of quiet generosity. The laundress didn't have to share her egg, the tanner's apprentice didn't have to spin tales by the fire, but they did. And those gifts, however small, kept you moving forward. You reach the stable, slipping through a gap in the wooden door. The horse, a sturdy beast with a coat like worn leather, lifts its head and snorts softly, unbothered by your presence. You settle into your corner, the straw prickling your skin but warm from the day's heat. You pull out the cheese, breaking off a piece and chewing slowly, letting the sharp, tangy flavour fill your mouth. The bread you save for morning. Hunger has taught you patience, the art of stretching what little you have. You lean back, the horse's steady breathing a lullaby, and let your thoughts drift. You're older now, not the wide-eyed child who woke in this world 2 years ago, barefoot and bewildered. You've learned its rhythms, its unspoken rules. You know which bakers leave scraps too close to the stall's edge, which priests offer soup without demanding a sermon's worth of gratitude. You know the weaver's gruff voice hides a grudging kindness, that the tanner's apprentice tells stories to forget his own hunger. You've become a part of this village, not in the way of merchants or guildmasters, but in the quiet way of shadows. Always there, always moving, always surviving. The stars peek through gaps in the stable roof, faint pinpricks of light in the vast dark. You think about what's next, what lies beyond the next sunrise. The weaver has started to trust you, letting you carry heavier baskets, even showing you how to thread a loom once, her calloused hands guiding yours with impatient precision. You're no apprentice, not yet, but you're learning, watching, storing away knowledge like grain for winter. The guilds are picky, guarding their secrets like misers, but they've taken in orphans before. History whispers of children like you who rose from sweeping floors to wielding tools, their names tucked in dusty ledgers rather than shouted in songs. Maybe that could be you one day. Or maybe you'll leave this village, chase rumours of work in a bigger town where the streets are paved with stone and the guilds are richer, hungrier for hands. You've heard stories from travellers, cities where orphans become apprentices, where a clever child might carve out a life. But the road is a risk, full of bandits and hunger, and nights with no stable to shield you. You could stay, keep running errands, keep surviving, until the village becomes your world entire. Or you could find a home, not a stable, not a church porch, but a place where you're more than a shadow. You think of the laundress, her wrinkled hands offering an egg without asking why. You think of the apprentice, his voice weaving tales that made the cold seem farther away. These people, strangers who owed you nothing, gave you something to hold on to. The medieval world wasn't built for kindness. Resources were scarce, winters brutal, and trust a rare coin, but it happened anyway. In the gaps between the chronicles, in the moments no scribe bothered to note, people shared. A crust of bread, a story, a corner by the fire. These were the threads that kept you alive, that made you more than a name lost to time. You pull your tunic tighter, the straw shifting beneath you. The horse snorts again, and you smile faintly, imagining it's a greeting. You've grown fond of this beast, its quiet company a comfort in a world that rarely offers any. You wonder if it has a name, if anyone bothered to give it one. You haven't named it yourself. Names feel like a weight you're not ready to carry, but you think of it as a friend, the only one who doesn't ask for chores or gratitude. The night deepens, the village sinking into silence. You close your eyes, letting the world fade. The clatter of the market, the creak of the church door, the hum of the looms. You're still here, still breathing, still weaving your way through a life unwritten. History won't remember you, not in the way it remembers kings or knights. Your name won't grace a parchment, won't be carved in stone, but your life matters in its quiet, stubborn way. Every errand you ran, every kindness you received or gave, was a stitch in the fabric of this world. You think of tomorrow. Maybe you'll carry another basket for the weaver, or help the apprentice haul hides, earning another story. Maybe you'll slip into the church, kneel in the back, and listen to the priest's Latin drone, hoping for a bowl of pottage. Or maybe you'll stand at the edge of the village, staring down the road that leads to somewhere else, wondering if you're brave enough to take it. For now, though, you're here, in this stable, with straw beneath you and stars above. The horse shifts, its warmth a quiet reassurance. You let your thoughts drift, carried by the rhythm of its breathing. You're a shadow, yes, but a shadow with weight, with purpose. You've survived this long, piecing together a life from fragments. Bread, cheese, stories, kindness. The world doesn't see you, but you see it, and that's enough. You're part of its pulse, its unwritten heart, a child who keeps moving, keeps living, one small victory at a time. Sleep creeps in, soft as the straw beneath you. The stars fade behind your closed eyes, and the village hums its last notes of the day. You're not just an orphan, not just a shadow. You're a story, unwritten but real, unfolding in the quiet spaces where history forgets to look. Sleep well, little one. You've earned it.